I'm dying, and no one can know. Those were the words Ryan Brooks whispered to himself every morning. Words a powerful CEO should never have to say. Words that would change when one shy girl finally found the courage to speak. Have you ever noticed something everyone else missed? Something that could save a life. Monday morning at Brooks Care Health headquarters. 42nd floor, where glass walls meet polished marble, where power wears tailored suits, and decisions affect thousands of lives. Emily Carter arranged medical instruments with careful precision. Around her, staff members chatted about their weekends, but she kept her head down, invisible by choice, invisible by habit. She was a contract nurse. Temporary. The kind of person people looked through rather than at. This heartwarming story of an unlikely hero begins here in the quiet spaces where most people never think to look. Emily had learned early that being unseen had advantages. You noticed things when people forgot you existed. The tiny fractures in their carefully constructed facades. The truths they tried to hide. She'd been born with steady hands and a steadier heart, the kind that broke quietly for strangers carrying others' pain without asking for recognition. Her mother used to say she had too much empathy and not enough voice. Maybe that's why nursing felt right. You could care deeply without needing to be loud about it. This shy girl had found her purpose in the spaces between words, in observation rather than declaration. When Ryan Brooks entered the suite that morning, the room held its breath. CEO, founder, the man whose decisions shaped everything. Emily glanced up and her world tilted. His left hand trembled as he reached for the examination table. Subtle, barely there, but she recognized that tremor from her grandmother's final years. Ryan caught her staring. "Just stress," he said, reading her expression. "Comes with the territory." But Emily's gaze dropped to his wrist where a small bandage peeked beneath his cuff. Recent blood work, private testing, hidden truth. He wasn't stressed. He was terrified, and hiding something that could destroy everything he'd built. What happens when the most powerful person in the room is concealing the one thing that could end his career? The checkup lasted 12 minutes. Emily recorded his blood pressure dangerously elevated and logged vitals with mechanical efficiency. Across the room, Claire Donovan, the CEO's assistant, scrolled through her phone with elegant boredom. "Finished." Claire's voice was crisp. "Mr. Brooks has meetings until 7. Emily nodded, peeling off gloves. As Ryan stood, his fingers fumbled with his watch clasp just a second before he caught himself and steadied. "Thank you, nurse." He paused, realizing he didn't know her name. "Carter. Emily Carter." Their eyes met. Something flickered across his face, vulnerability perhaps, or the recognition that she'd witnessed more than he wanted anyone to see. Then Claire was at his elbow, ushering him away, and Emily was alone with the quiet hum of equipment and an unshakable certainty that something was deeply wrong. In the staff break room, Lily Matthews dropped into the chair beside her with dramatic flair. "Please don't tell me you're crushing on the CEO." Emily nearly choked on her tea. "What?" "No, I think he's sick." Everyone at that level is stressed. It's called executive burnout." "It's not burnout, Lily." His hands the way he moved. "I've seen this before." Lily's smile faded. "What are you saying?" "I think he has a neurological condition, and I think he's hiding it from everyone, including his doctors." The afternoon stretched long. Emily tried focusing on routine tasks, but her mind circled back to that tremor, that bandage, that hollow smile of someone carrying an unbearable secret. She considered pulling his medical file, just a quick look, but executive records were locked tight, accessible only to senior staff. Around 4 o'clock, passing the executive wing, she glimpsed Ryan through glass conference room walls mid-presentation. His gestures were controlled, authoritative, until his left hand jerked involuntarily, and he quickly pocketed it. No one else noticed, or they chose not to. That evening, reviewing old neurology case studies at Home Possibilities spiraled through Emily's mind. Essential tremor, early Parkinson's, medication complications, each diagnosis darker than the last. Her phone buzzed with a text from Dr. Samuel Reed, her former mentor. Dinner this week. Been too long. Dr. Reed would understand. 10 years ago, he'd collapsed during surgery burnout so severe it nearly ended his career. He'd rebuilt himself slowly, learning to recognize the cost of ignoring your body's warnings. Now he consulted part-time teaching younger physicians about sustainable practice. Emily replied, "Tomorrow I need advice." The next day brought rain and an emergency staff meeting. Budget restructuring. The usual corporate language, meaning jobs hung in the balance while executives made calculated choices. Emily stood in the back as Ryan addressed the crowded room. His voice was steady, reassuring, but she saw what others missed: the clenched jaw between sentences, the white-knuckle grip on the podium. "These changes will strengthen Brooks Care's foundation," Ryan was saying. "Our mission has always been comprehensive care for patients and staff alike." Then it happened. His hand slipped from the podium, jerking downward beyond his control. The water glass tipped liquid spreading across polished wood. Silence crashed through the room. Claire appeared instantly with napkins. "Mr. Brooks has been working tirelessly on this proposal. Let's show him our appreciation." Polite applause, nervous shuffling. Within seconds, the moment was explained away, packaged neatly as simple fatigue. But Emily had seen his eyes clouded, unfocused, the look of someone watching their own body betray them. After the meeting, she approached Claire in the hallway. "Ms. Donovan, has anyone suggested Mr. Brooks see a neurologist?" Claire turned slowly, expression icing over. "Excuse me. I'm not trying to overstep, but I believe—" "You're a contract nurse, Emily. Your 6-week assignment doesn't qualify you to diagnose our CEO." Claire's voice dropped to a sharp whisper. "Stay in your lane or you won't have one." Emily's face burned as other staff hurried past, eyes averted, pretending they hadn't heard. That night over dinner, Dr. Reed listened to everything: the tremor, the denial, the veiled threats. He was quiet for a long moment, stirring tea. At 60, with silver hair and eyes that had witnessed too much suffering, he carried a gentleness that invited confession. "You're certain it's neurological?" "I can't be completely certain, but yes." "If he's concealing a degenerative condition while running a major healthcare organization—" Dr. Reed let the implications hang between them. "I could lose my job just for suggesting it." "You could, but you might also save his life." He leaned forward, and in his voice Emily heard an inspirational conviction born from his own near destruction. "Kindness isn't weakness, Emily. Speaking truth isn't arrogance. Sometimes the quietest voice holds the most important message." "But how no one will listen to me? I'm nobody." His smile was sad and knowing. "Then don't speak as a nurse. Speak as a human being who noticed another human being drowning." The words settled over her like a challenge she couldn't ignore. Could one person's courage really change everything? Or would speaking up only make things catastrophically worse? Emily didn't sleep. She lay in her small apartment listening to rain drum against windows, playing out scenarios. Each ended with humiliation, unemployment, or both. But she kept seeing Ryan's face, that flash of terror when his hand betrayed him, exhaustion carved into the lines around his eyes, the desperate pretense that everything was fine. She thought about her grandmother again, about the last conversation they'd had before the disease stole her ability to speak clearly. "Don't let pride make you small, Emily." Gran had said words slurring slightly. Sometimes being brave means being uncomfortable. Those words had haunted Emily through nursing school, through every moment she'd wanted to speak up but stayed silent. Maybe this was the moment Gran had been preparing her for. By morning she'd decided. Terrified, but decided. She waited until afternoon when Claire would be in a board meeting. Then she walked to the executive floor file folder clutched like a shield. The elevator ride felt eternal. Each floor that passed gave her another chance to turn back. 40 floors of doubt. But she kept rising. Ryan's office door stood half open. He sat behind an enormous desk, staring at his computer with the glazed expression of someone who'd forgotten what they were looking at. Emily knocked softly, her heart a war drum in her chest. "Mr. Brooks, may I have a moment?" He looked up, surprised. "Nurse Carter, is something wrong?" "That's what I wanted to ask you, sir." She stepped inside, heart hammering so violently she was certain he could hear it. "I apologize if this is inappropriate, but I'm concerned about your health." His expression shuddered immediately, walls slamming into place. "I have excellent physicians." "I'm sure you do, but I don't think you're being honest with them." She took a breath, forcing herself to hold his gaze. "Your tremor isn't from stress or exhaustion. The way your hand moves, that's neurological. And the bandage on your wrist tells me you're already investigating it privately, away from company doctors." Ryan stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "This is incredibly inappropriate. I know. I'm sorry. But someone has to say it, and everyone else is too afraid or too invested in pretending everything's normal. You've been here 3 weeks. You think that qualifies you to diagnose me based on a shaky hand." His voice was hard defensive, but Emily heard something underneath fear. Raw, visceral fear. "I appreciate your concern, but you're overstepping, significantly." "Mr. Brooks, please. I've seen this before. My grandmother—" "I don't care about your grandmother." The words came out harsh, louder than he'd intended. He caught himself, lowered his voice. "I don't need a lecture from a temporary employee about my health. I'm fine." But his hand was trembling as he said it. They both saw it. Emily felt tears prick her eyes, but she blinked them back. "You're not fine. And deep down, you know that. I just hope you figure it out before it's too late." The door opened. Claire stood there, her face a portrait of controlled fury. "Emily, my office, now." Emily's legs felt like water, but she walked past with as much dignity as she could summon. Behind her, Ryan said quietly, his voice barely audible, "Claire, perhaps we shouldn't make this. She accused you of being ill, to your face. That's grounds for immediate termination." Claire's office was all sharp edges and cold surfaces. She didn't invite Emily to sit. "I'm making this simple," Claire said, her voice cold and clinical. "You're terminated effective immediately. Security will escort you out. You'll receive payment for hours worked, and you'll sign an NDA regarding anything observed here." "I was only trying to help. I don't care what you were trying to do. You violated professional boundaries and attempted to undermine our CEO's authority with baseless speculation." Claire's eyes were hard as glass. "You're finished here, and I'll make sure every hospital in this city knows why." The threat hung in the air like poison. 30 minutes later, Emily descended in the elevator with a security guard ID badge, confiscated cardboard box of belongings in her arms. The descent felt endless, 40 floors of shame and doubt. Had she been wrong? Had she destroyed her career for nothing? But then she remembered his eyes, the fear in them, the way his hand shook as he denied everything. No, she'd been right. Even if it cost her everything, she'd been right. Lily met her in the lobby, stricken. "Em, I just heard." I'm so sorry. It's okay. Emily's voice was hollow. I knew this would happen. Then why did you do it? Because he's dying and everyone's pretending they don't see it. Because someone had to care more about his life than his position. Lily pulled her into a fierce hug. You're either the bravest person I know or the most stubborn. Probably both. She went home, ate cereal for dinner because cooking felt impossible, cried angry, helpless tears, then stopped crying and sat in darkness wondering if doing the right thing was supposed to feel this awful. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number emergency. Ryan Brooks admitted to St. Catherine's. Suspected neurological event. Emily's blood turned to ice. The box of belongings slipped from her lap. She grabbed her keys and ran. St. Catherine's emergency department was familiar chaos, beeping monitors, hurried footsteps, the sharp smell of antiseptic, and fear. Emily showed her nursing credentials at the desk, technically valid for 2 more weeks. I need to know about Ryan Brooks. Is he okay? The desk nurse gave her an odd look. ICU, family and approved visitors only. I used to work with him, please. I need to know he's... Before the nurse could refuse, a familiar voice called out. Emily. Doctor. Reed walked toward her in his white coat, looking exhausted and worried. I'm consulting on his case. Come with me. He led her to a quiet corner near the ICU entrance. Through glass, she could see Ryan in a hospital bed, monitors tracking vitals, IV line snaking from his arm, oxygen mask covering his face. What happened? Emily's voice cracked. He collapsed in his office around 6, lost consciousness, seizure. Dr. Reed's expression was grim. It's exactly what you suspected. Early-stage Parkinson's disease severely exacerbated by extreme stress, caffeine abuse, and chronic sleep deprivation. He's been managing it with unprescribed medication and sheer willpower. The burnout accelerated everything. Oh, God. Emily's hand went to her mouth. Emily, listen. You were right. If he'd continued, he could have had a catastrophic event, a fall, a stroke, worse. You tried to warn him. And I was fired for it. You were fired for caring when no one else would. Reed's hand on her shoulder was gentle. That's nothing to be ashamed of. Through the glass, Ryan stirred. His eyes opened unfocused at first, then clearing as they landed on Emily standing outside. Their gazes locked. In that moment, she saw something unexpected. Not anger, not resentment. Recognition. Gratitude. The terrible, vulnerable acknowledgement of someone who'd been truly seen when they most wanted to hide. He asked for you, Dr. Reed said quietly. When he woke up briefly earlier, your name was the first thing he said. He wants to talk when he's strong enough. Emily felt something break open in her chest. Relief and sorrow and vindication all tangled together. Sometimes the truth doesn't set you free. It just reveals who you really are beneath the armor. 2 days later, Ryan was moved to a private room. The tremors had stabilized under medication, but the diagnosis was confirmed: Parkinson's disease accelerated by years of denial. Dr. Reed brought Emily to his room quietly. She half expected security to remove her, but instead found Ryan sitting up in bed, looking smaller, without the armor of designer suits and corner office authority. Nurse Carter. His voice was hoarse. I owe you an apology. Emily shook her head. You don't owe me anything. I think I do. You saw what I refused to acknowledge. Instead of thanking you, I let Claire fire you for telling the truth. He looked at his hands, steadier now, medicated properly for the first time in months. I spent 6 months pretending everything was fine, hiding test results, canceling appointments, convincing myself if I just worked harder, pushed longer, it would disappear. Why? Emily asked softly, settling into the visitor's chair. Why not tell anyone? Ryan was quiet for a long moment, staring at the IV in his arm. Because the moment I admitted illness, I stopped being Ryan Brooks' CEO and became Ryan Brooks' patient. Someone weak, someone needing help. He laughed bitterly. Ironic. I run a healthcare company but couldn't take care of myself. When did you first notice the symptoms? He closed his eyes, remembering. About 8 months ago. Just a tiny tremor in my left index finger. I told myself it was nothing. Then it spread. Got worse. I saw a neurologist, privately paid cash, used a fake name. When he said it was likely Parkinson's, I just couldn't accept it. So you stopped going. I stopped going. Started taking unprescribed medication I ordered online. Drank more coffee to compensate for the fatigue. Worked longer hours to prove to myself I was still capable. His voice broke slightly. I became my own worst enemy. Dr. Reed, standing by the window, spoke up. Denial is powerful. It numbs us when truth feels too heavy to carry. But truth doesn't vanish because you ignore it, Emily said gently. It just gets heavier until it crushes you. I understand that now. Ryan met her eyes directly. You could have walked away. You could have let me destroy myself. Why didn't you? Emily considered the question. Why had she risked everything for someone she barely knew? Because I've watched too many people suffer in silence, she said finally. My grandmother had Parkinson's. She hid it for 2 years out of embarrassment. Didn't want to be a burden. By the time she got treatment, early interventions that might have helped were no longer effective. She held his gaze. I watched her fade away, knowing that if someone had spoken up sooner, if she'd felt safe enough to ask for help, maybe things would have been different. You're not weak for being ill, Mr. Brooks. You're just human. Something in Ryan's expression shifted, a wall crumbling brick by careful brick. My father died at 45, he said quietly. Heart attack. Never slowed down, never complained, just pushed until his body gave out. I was 17. I watched my mother try to pick up the pieces afterward. The medical bills, the funeral costs, 3 kids to raise alone. His voice was raw, now unguarded. I swore I'd never do that to anyone. I'd be smarter, stronger, more careful. And then you did exactly the same thing, Emily finished softly. Yeah. The word was barely a whisper. I became him. The man I swore I'd never be. The room fell quiet except for the soft beep of the heart monitor marking time in steady, persistent beats. What happens now? Emily asked Dr. Reed. Treatment, physical therapy, medication management, and critically, life changes. Dr. Reed moved closer. Ryan, you can't run a major corporation and manage a chronic condition on 4 hours of sleep and excessive caffeine. Something must give. I know. Ryan closed his eyes. I just don't know how to do less. Being CEO is who I am. It's all I've been for 15 years. No, Emily said gently. It's what you do. Who you are is in here. She touched her chest. And that person deserves to be healthy and whole. That person deserves to live. Over the next week, despite Claire's efforts to contain it, the story leaked. CEO hospitalized. Undisclosed medical condition. Questions about leadership stability. The board convened emergency meetings. Shareholders worried. The press circled like predators sensing vulnerability. Claire appeared at Ryan's hospital room unannounced one afternoon, her usual poise, fractured eyes red-rimmed. This is my fault, she said, not meeting his eyes. I knew you weren't well. I saw the signs months ago, the tremors, the exhaustion, the mood swings. But I thought if I managed things better, scheduled tighter, kept people away from you, it would be fine. Her voice cracked. I protected my career instead of protecting you. I protected the image instead of the person. Ryan studied her carefully, seeing her clearly for perhaps the first time. You terminated Emily for trying to help me. I know. Claire's voice was small, childlike. I was wrong. I was scared of what it meant if you were sick, scared of losing my position, scared of admitting I'd been enabling you. She finally looked at him. I'm prepared to resign. Transfer to the Atlanta office. Ryan said simply, not unkindly. HR will handle the details. You're talented, Claire, but you need to learn that ambition without compassion is just cruelty, and that protecting someone sometimes means making them uncomfortable. After Claire left, Emily sat in the visitor's chair, watching afternoon light shift across the room, painting everything in shades of gold. She's right about one thing, Ryan said. This wouldn't have happened if the culture was different, if it was acceptable to be human, to need support, to admit vulnerability without fear of losing everything you've built. Emily thought about everyone who worked at Brooks Care: nurses, custodial staff, administrators. How many were suffering silently, too afraid to speak, too worried about their jobs to ask for what they needed? What if you changed it? She asked. Changed what? The system. What if Brooks Care became a place where people could be honest about their struggles, where health wasn't just something we provided patients, but something we actually practiced ourselves? Ryan looked at her with something like wonder. An employee wellness program. No, a cultural transformation, real support, real resources, making it safe to not be okay, making it inspirational rather than shameful to ask for help, making it normal to be human. For the first time since she'd met him, Ryan smiled, genuinely a smile that reached his eyes and softened the harsh lines of exhaustion. You're not just a nurse, Emily Carter. You're a revolutionary. She laughed, surprised. I'm really not. I'm just a shy girl who thinks people deserve better than silence and fear. So do I. Will you help me build it? Emily stared. What? When I return, and I will just differently, I want you on my team. Not as a contract employee, as Director of Human Wellness, if you'll consider it. The offer hung in the air, impossible and perfect. I'm not qualified, Emily whispered. I don't have an MBA or management experience or... You have something better. Empathy, courage, the ability to truly see people when everyone else looks away. Ryan's voice was steady, now certain. You saw me when I was invisible to myself. That's the qualification that matters most. Outside the window, the city stretched toward evening, millions of people carrying invisible burdens. Yes, Emily said, feeling something shift inside her, something that felt like coming home to herself. I'll help. When the powerful learn humility and the quiet learn to speak, that's when real healing begins. 3 months later, Brooks Care looked different. Not physically, the glass and marble remained, but something in the atmosphere had shifted like the first warm breeze after a brutal winter. Ryan returned gradually with accommodations, flexible hours, mandatory rest periods, a new executive team sharing the burden he'd carried alone too long. He used a cane, now a visible reminder of his condition, and he didn't hide it. The first time he appeared at a company-wide meeting with the cane, silence blanketed the room. Then someone started clapping Lily naturally, and others joined until applause filled the space like a wave of acceptance. I'm not here to discuss quarterly reports, Ryan said when they quieted. I'm here to talk about something more important. What it means to be human in a workplace that sometimes forgets we're human. He told his story, the tremors, the denial, the collapse. He told them about Emily's courage and his own fear. Then he announced the Human Wellness Initiative on-site counseling, flexible scheduling, meaningful health screenings, and a promise that asking for help wouldn't end your career. For too long, we've operated under the belief that strength means silence, Ryan continued. That admitting struggle means weakness. That health is something we provide to others but somehow don't deserve ourselves. That ends today. The heartwarming transformation had begun. Emily watched from the side, overwhelmed. She'd spent weeks working with HR and wellness consultants, drafting policies, training managers. It had been terrifying and exhilarating. Dr. Reed found her in the hallway afterward. He'd signed on as the program's medical advisor, bringing hard-won wisdom about recovery and sustainable practice. "Your grandmother would be proud," he said quietly. Emily's throat tightened. "I hope so. I wish she could see this." "She can. Love doesn't end, Emily. It transforms. Your grief became her legacy." "I know so. You turned grief into grace. That's profound." Lily appeared, grinning. "Director Carter, there's a line of people waiting to talk to you. Turns out everyone's been struggling silently, and now they finally feel safe." Emily took a breath, steadying herself. "Then let's listen. That's what this is all about, really listening." The months that followed weren't easy. Change never is. Some executives resisted, uncomfortable with vulnerability. Some employees didn't trust the new policies were genuine, too many broken promises in the past. But slowly, steadily, the culture shifted. People started taking mental health days without fabricating illnesses. A senior vice president broke down crying in a meeting and was met with support instead of judgment. Managers checked on teams' well-being, not just productivity. The medical suite expanded to include counseling rooms and meditation spaces. Stories emerged cautiously at first, then in a flood. The accountant who'd been hiding her anxiety for years. The janitor whose depression made getting out of bed feel impossible. The surgeon whose burnout had nearly cost him everything. Each story mattered. Each person mattered. And Emily listened to them all. And Emily, this shy girl who'd always believed she belonged in the background, found herself leading meetings, training staff, speaking up when things weren't right. The transformation was inspirational to everyone who witnessed it. She'd learned something profound. You didn't need to be loud to be heard. You just needed to be honest. One afternoon, reviewing wellness survey results in her new office, Ryan appeared in the doorway. "Got a minute?" "Always." He settled into a chair, moving carefully. The medication helped, but the disease remained a permanent companion he'd learned to acknowledge rather than fight. "I've been thinking about legacy," he said. "What we leave behind. A year ago, I thought legacy meant revenue and market share. Buildings with my name on them. Now I realize it's about lives we touch, systems we change, courage we inspire in others." "You've changed significantly," Emily said softly. "So have you. You're not hiding anymore. You're not that shy girl who kept her head down anymore." She smiled. "I'm still her. I've just learned that quiet doesn't mean powerless. Sometimes the most important things are said in whispers. Neither are you." They sat in comfortable silence, two people who'd saved each other without quite meaning to. "Thank you," Ryan said, "for being brave enough to see me, the real me. Thank you for being brave enough to let yourself be seen. Sometimes saving someone means seeing them when they can't see themselves." A year passed. Then another. The Human Wellness Initiative became Brooks Care's signature achievement, copied by other companies, featured in publications as a model for compassionate leadership. Ryan's Parkinson's progressed, as it inevitably would. But with proper treatment support and life balance, he managed it with grace. He stepped back from daily operations, transitioning to board chairman mentoring new leaders who understood that strength includes vulnerability. Emily grew into her role, her voice strengthening, while her kindness remained steadfast. She spoke at conferences, trained other organizations, never forgetting what invisibility felt like. One spring afternoon, at the opening ceremony for the new wellness wing, a beautiful space with gardens, natural light, and rooms designed for healing, Ryan gave a speech that moved many to tears. 2 years ago, I was dying, he said simply. Not from Parkinson's, though, that certainly threatened me. I was dying from believing I had to be invincible, that asking for help meant weakness, that admitting I was human meant failure. He paused, looking at the crowd. Employees, patients, community members, lives touched by changes they'd made together. One person changed that, a shy girl who saw what everyone missed, who spoke when it would have been easier, safer to stay silent. Emily Carter didn't just notice my shaking hands. She noticed me, the person behind the title, the human behind the armor. Emily stood in back cheeks burning as heads turned. Sometimes, Ryan continued, saving a company starts with saving a person, and saving a person starts with simply seeing them, really seeing them, their pain, their fear, their humanity. He smiled. Emily taught me that. Now, because of her courage, we're teaching it to everyone who walks through these doors. This heartwarming mission of truly seeing each other has become our most important work. Later, as people explored the new space, Dr. Reed found Emily by a window overlooking the city. Thinking about your grandmother. Yeah. Wondering if she sees this. If she knows. She knows. Love like that doesn't disappear. It transforms into action, into good we do for others because of those we've lost. Emily nodded, eyes glistening. I used to think being quiet meant being powerless, but maybe the quietest voices carry the most important truths. Maybe they do. As sunset painted everything gold and rose, Emily felt something settle in her chest, a peace she hadn't known she was seeking. She'd found her voice, not by becoming someone else, but by having courage to be exactly who she was, someone who noticed, who cared, who refused to look away from suffering even when inconvenient, even when dangerous, and that she realized was a kind of power all its own.